Hey, good morning. If you don't know me, my name is Daniel. I am our middle school director here. And today is a special day because we get to celebrate the baptism of Hannah Sadie. So, Hannah, come join me up here. Come join me up here real quick. If you don't know Hannah, there's so many things I could start saying. I could start bragging about her baking business. And how long has that been going?
About like 2 years.
And will you remind me what the name is?
Bananas Bakery.
And does your mom have any help in it, or does she just supply you with stuff?
Supplies and dishes.
Perfect. Wasn't expecting that, but now it clicks. That makes sense. I love that. Right? Hannah has done so many things. And what I love, I use her baking company as a great example because she just does it. This takes no prompting. How did you even think to start doing that?
Just because I kind of got good at it, so I felt like I should just make money off of it.
Are you hiring? Because that sounds fantastic. And there's just so many things that Hannah has done. You've been involved in cheer, competitive cheer, for how long?
Like 7 years.
7 years. So she does tons of things. And I think one of the biggest blessings for me when I get to hang out with students, they just get after it. Adults talk a lot. They just get after it and they do it. So I'm inspired anytime I get to spend time with a student, especially Hannah, who is just chasing dreams and getting after stuff and learns how to make money in some pretty easy ways. So that's awesome. So I got to meet with you this week and talk a little bit about, why you're making this decision and why now is the time for you. Because you have grown up around the church, in the church, with mom working for it your entire life, essentially. So why don't you tell everyone else a little bit about why was now the time for you to do this?
I'd say now was the time because school is kind of getting hard, so I kind of just grew closer to God, and I started talking to him more, so I just felt ready to be committed.
And when Hannah and I were talking, one of the things when she gave me the long version, which I love, is as school's getting hard, we were realizing more that we can't do everything on our own. And she used the word, my relationship with Jesus is growing because we're spending more time together. I'm talking more to him. And I think for some of us, when we hear those reminders, we're like, oh yeah, we know it's a relationship, but it hit me. It was one of those moments, and this is what I mean by getting inspired by students, is they remind me even in ways where this is not just a ritual, a religion that we just, do, but Hannah reminded me of some of the ways that her relationship with Jesus has impacted her, whether it's at school, at home, or in friendships. And I just love the way that you described that to me and to us right now. But so tell us a little bit about kind of what this step means for you and kind of how you got there today.
For me, this kind of means a new life in Christ, kind of just going down Jesus's path and what he wants me to do, from now on.
Enough said. Enough said. Well, you ready? Awesome. God, we thank you for this place, and we thank you for the people that you have filled it with. I ask right now that we would just bless the heck out of Hannah, and that we would just give her, that you would give her, as what she said, guidance in your path. And I love that she's already looking to your path, not even her own. It takes a lot of people a lot of years to figure out what life is all about and what our path is. And for those of us who believe in you, know you, and call you Father, we know that our path aligns with your path when we know your love. And I am so thankful that in 8th grade, Hannah gets it. She's there, and that she wants to know you deeper, and she wants to know you more in that way. And so I ask that you would continue to reveal yourself to her each and every day of her life, and all the different flavors that you get to know us in, and that you reveal yourself to us
So cool, Hannah. So cool. Thanks for sharing that with us. Well, let's continue our time together. I'm going to invite up a friend of mine, a friend for like the last 4 days. Steve, is that right? So I'm going to invite my friend Steve up. Steve, come on up, and I'll let him introduce himself. But would you welcome Steve? And I'll hand this to you, and you can sit or stand however you feel most comfortable. I'm going to sit down, though. Feeling pretty comfortable. So before I have Steve share, and I've got a few questions I'm going to ask you, I want to give you a couple of thoughts. The reason why we're having some other people share this morning, what we're having them share this morning, it's because there have been some things, I think, on my mind and on the mind of leadership here at Creekside. And so I'm going to speak on behalf of leadership at Creekside in general. And it kind of has struck me in the form of 3 different questions. And one of those questions is, when I think about our church and God's church in general in this area, the first question that came to my mind is, are you empowering the people of God to do his work? And so when I think about this place, I think about you all, and I think about the kingdom at large, and I think, hey, as a leadership, are we empowering you and the rest of God's people to do his kingdom work together? And this is what Ephesians talks about in Ephesians chapter 4. It talks a whole, actually, the book of Ephesians is talking about this, but I came across this statement as I thought this through, and it was that weakening churches pay people to do the work of the ministry. They pay people to do all of the work of the ministry, but healthy churches challenge their people to use their gifts and the ways that God has gifted them to impact others. So that was the first question. The second question is the surrounding community any different because of our ministry? And you could also ask that question this way: would anyone miss us at all if our church just disappeared, vanished from this particular area? What type of difference would that make? And that one stuck with me for a while. So I've been thinking through that one for a while. We may need, when we think about that question, a whole new set of measurements when we're trying to answer that question to confirm whether or not we as a church are really making that type of an impact. Where if we were to vanish, people would go, holy moly. Like, what do we do? That church really was building into our lives, was really building into our community. What do we do now that they're gone? And the last question is Jesus being highlighted in this community through our collective action? And I say it that way because I know many of you, many of us, and many people along this corridor of churches are making a kingdom impact. As individuals, we're making a kingdom impact. But when it comes to God's collective church, what are we doing together to really shine? Not for our sake, not to shine light on Creekside and make another Creekside t-shirt, although those are cool and I like wearing those. But what are we doing to make his kingdom shine and to reflect back on him so that people know, hey, Jesus is alive and well in this community? So those are the things that have really hit me. And one of the thoughts comes up in Titus for me, and it's we may want to follow Paul's advice in the book of Titus when he says, do good by meeting the urgent needs of others. And there are a whole bunch of urgent needs that we're going to be highlighting this morning through our guests. So with that said, Steve, here we go, man. First off, would you introduce yourself to us and then tell us how and when, because you're representing a ministry called Building Bridges. How and when did Building Bridges start?
Well, thanks, Tim. Thank you all for giving me a chance to even come here and share with you. And I'll tell you, we've been friends for 4 days, but his passion And his love of Christ makes me feel like we've been friends a lifetime. So thank you for your friendship, Tim. Building bridges, something I love to talk about, because 19 years ago, I found a new church called San Ramon Press. I became part of it. First time I came to faith very late in my life. Background, father of 3 daughters, husband to 1 wife, I like to say. Came to this valley to work for Chevron, and when we got married, we got to go find a church. It was something kind of new to both of us, and we landed on San Ramon Press. San Ramon Press was, in that time, looking at a transition. We used to go to the mountains to an annual retreat, hiring speakers and all that. We couldn't afford that anymore. We want to do something different. And I stepped up and said, well, what do you think about retreating to our own community and letting God speak to us through serving our community in some way, some form? We landed on 3 targets: elderly, single parent households, and military. Let's go find them. How do we do that? We don't know where they live. They're not in a phone book somewhere. So we just started just within our own community to serve some elderly by cleaning their gutters, cleaning up their yard, doing some minor repairs. And boy, in that first couple of years, God really spoke to us, because you kind of look around and you go, are there any needs in Alamo, Danville? Some of these volunteers would go, I'm going to homes and working on homes that look nicer than my own. How do we journey through this where we're trying to serve people with abundance? Well, then we really looked inside of our own hearts and said, really, we need to serve out of our abundance of love because we were first served. And that posture makes us serve differently. It helps us to understand Jesus differently. And for 19 years now, we've been blessed with this ministry, even as our church changes. Our demographics change as we age. People move away, but new people come in and partnerships come in. To Tim's point, we've networked with other churches to really shine on this valley, not because we're trying to fill our seats, but it's really just to express that abundance of love that because we were first loved. So that's where we've been.
Yeah, Stephen, you bring up a good point, and just for the rest of us listening this morning, just to recognize this important fact that you go to San Ramon Presbyterian, a lot of us here right now go to Creekside, and we're not 2 rival gangs, right? So it's okay to love each other, and it's okay to do things together. We're not going into war after this moment right now. That there was a musical reference there. I don't know if you caught that. So you mentioned you started this thing 19 years ago. So why after 19 years are you still so passionate about building bridges?
Even just like today, the reason I came here is because I became friends through building bridges with Jeremy Mann. Some of you guys know Jeremy. We were working with the fire department to find projects, fire abatement projects, and he was a chaplain to the local fire departments. And I fell in love with this guy. The guy is everywhere. He does everything. We were just looking for projects. But then we became friends. We've networked. We've helped each other's ministries. We just continue to see year after year God show up in that, right? Building bridges with other ministries, leading us through other doors that they open up. But for me personally, I just needed to see God in action. I'm an engineer. Like I said, I came to faith very late in life. And I frankly, I'll be honest with you, I always thought religion was those people who didn't get science, right? And so when I came to faith, I'm like, I need to see those 2 fish and 5 loaves feed 5,000 people. I need to see it happen. And I'll tell you, every year, some miracle happens right in front of our eyes. We don't have the money shows up. We don't have the people show up. We go to a teacher's house who has tragedy in her life, and she's a hoarder right here in San Ramon. Her neighbors are calling the cops to condemn her house. We want to help her. We don't have the resources. Lennar Holmes calls us up out of the blue, says, we read about you in the paper. How can we help? They do the transformation of her household where the whole neighborhood that used to call the cops on her now come and help her out and paint her house. We go to a house in Alamo, right here in our backyard. And this old lady, her house is, the walls are collapsing in on her. She greets us with a firearm because she's afraid of who's coming towards her. Jeremy McMahon shows up, pays her power bill so she can have heat. Other people show up to give her a water heater so she can take a shower. This stuff happens every single year, not because we're capable. We are a small church. We barely have 100 people on Sundays. We don't have the resources, but somehow every year something happens. After 19 years, we look forward to this to see what the next miracle is that he's going to perform in our lives.
Yeah. It was awesome. So I plan, there's a lot of eyes. I plan for us and for you and I to be doing things together into the future. But practically, thinking about this right now, and for those of us listening, how can people get involved?
You know, our event is usually on the third Saturday in October. And thanks to some other great blessings, we've been able to extend that to a Christmas meal for our soldiers over at Camp Parks the first weekend in December. So those are kind of our two primary events. Third Saturday in October, we go out to about 40 homes in our community, and we serve them with minor cleanup and repairs. And then sometimes we take on some pretty big projects, like I mentioned, when we have partnerships. And then the first weekend in December, we work with the military out in Camp Parks, and we cook dinner for about 400 soldiers and their family members that happen to be stationed here and working here through that break. So one, you can just participate in October or December, but what I would love to do is partner with Creekside. As I mentioned, we are an aging congregation. We're a small congregation. We've helped other churches plant this type of event in their own, pick their own date, whatever. But we've also developed relationships with a lot of corporations that now sponsor us. So we have a lot of infrastructure set up. Home Depot's out there doing builds with us. Safeway, PG&E, we have partnerships with Allied Industries for dumpsters. So we have all that infrastructure set up. If we could partner up in October so we can spread this good news even further, boy, that would be fantastic.
Awesome. We are looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. Would you thank Steve for being here? He's running out right now because he needs to go get his daughter moved into school.
Yes, that's right. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, Steve. Before we get to our next person who's going to share, we're actually going to watch a little video that's going to highlight something that she's going to be sharing with us.
What's up, guys? I hope you're having a fantastic day. I am. You know why? Because we are focusing, we are talking, and we are planning Night to Shine, February 11th. As you know, it is my favorite night of the year. And yes, because of COVID, we had to adapt last year, and we're also having to adapt this year. We're still not going to be in person, but we are going to have a worldwide Shine Through parade and virtual celebration that I am so excited about. Is it going to be quite the same as being in person? I don't know, but I still believe that God's going to use it. He's going to use it to be able to celebrate lives, because we'll still be able to crown them as king and queen. We'll still be able to celebrate them. They'll still be able to dance from their cars. They'll still be able to be loved, to be cared for, and hopefully hear the good news of the gospel. Guys, traveling all over the country and all over the world, one of the constant themes is in COVID, how many people with special needs are feeling forgotten, have been isolated, have been in their homes, have had nobody to celebrate them, nobody to love on them, nobody to care for them. That's why I believe this year's Night to Shine may be even more important. That's why we really do desperately need you to say yes, to get involved, to get your church involved, to figure out how you can be a volunteer, whether that's just stand on the red carpet and as cars go by, you cheer and celebrate them. Whether that's just stopping and praying for all those with special needs that have had no one to tell them that they're awesome the last 2 years. But on Night to Shine, we're not only going to tell them, we're going to show them how awesome they are. For your church, there can be so many ways that you can make it special. Whatever it is in your community that's different. Last year, we got to see drum lines, we got to see gymnasts, we got to see cheerleaders, we got to see so many amazing things. How could you make it special? So would you get your church involved? Would you sign up? Would you join us in saying, you know what, you might have been alone, but you haven't been forgotten. And we're gonna celebrate you, we're gonna love you. You're gonna be the king of the queen, February 11th on Night to Shine. Thanks for being a part of it. God bless you guys. What's up, guys?
So I've been referring our church. We've been talking about this for the last several weeks here at Creekside. Mentioned it on Sundays, have it in our newsletter, have it in a link on our website now for guests to be able to sign up, as well as volunteers to be able to sign up to be a part of this. Now we just need some more people to keep signing up as volunteers for this incredible event. So with that said, I'm gonna ask Sharissa Chabin to come on up here. Would you welcome her? Sharissa, thanks for being here. And yes, you're welcome. We know you're connected with Night to Shine. So tell us about your connection or your role with the Night to Shine ministry.
Sure. So I first heard about Night to Shine about 6 years ago. I had been at a convention that Tim Tebow spoke at, and he talked a whole bunch about Night to Shine. So I took it back to my church, Cornerstone, and told them about this event. And so that first year, I helped out with a Night to Shine that is held in Pleasanton, and they're still holding theirs there. And then now this will be 4 years that we have held one in Walnut Creek. So I've started that one, coordinating that one 4 years ago. And so we did 2 in-person proms, and this will be our second drive-through prom. But over that time, we've just grown in. So I started it as a coordinator. Now I have a co-coordinator, and we're just continuing to grow with more churches involved now as well.
Yeah, and I want to highlight this. I think, is this right? This is the first year that there are actually multiple churches teaming together to put this on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have always, since we started the Walnut Creek Night to Shine, we have always hosted it at Walnut Creek Press at their location, but we really wanted to get more churches involved. It was one of the things we thought about is how can we get more into the community and expand this event into more churches and also reaching more people with special needs, and how do we get that out there? And so this year we started getting connections to other churches. So I was introduced to you by Matt Warner, and then I got introduced also to the serve lead at CPC. So Creekside CPC have joined in this year, as well as a church up in Antioch. They've joined in as well, and we've also got Walnut Creek Press that's involved, as well as having their location again for this drive-through this year. So yeah, it's great. We've got 5 churches now.
Awesome. So if you're not playing this already, start playing it in your mind. There's a game, the six steps of separation with Kevin Bacon, where you can relate almost every movie back to Kevin Bacon. And this morning's theme is separation with Jeremy Mann. And so Matt Warner was introduced to me by Jeremy Mann. And that's how Matt and I became friends, and that's how we got to know each other. We heard from Steve already. There's more to come. So anyway, this ministry and the work that you're doing with this ministry is spiritual in nature, and I believe that God puts these things on a person's heart. So what do you sense that God is saying to you right now with this ministry?
Well, even just when I first heard about Night to Shine, it was one of these, like, Tim Tebow spoke. He's always super passionate about things that he's speaking about. I'm sure you guys have heard him before. And so I heard about Night to Shine, and I was at a convention. It was a few-day convention, and he spoke the first night, and it was just kind of like, oh, that's cool. didn't really think about it. And then all weekend, it was just like, I just kept going back to Night to Shine. Like, I guess I really need to learn more about this event. Like, I didn't go in thinking that this is what I wanted to do for ministry. And it just kept, it was in my head. I couldn't get it out. I just kept thinking about it over and over and over and over. And from there, it's just continued. And so during these COVID times, thinking about these people with special needs, and as the video mentioned, they have been in more isolation than we have. They're vulnerable medically, and so any event that they normally have during the year, everything's been canceled. They haven't been able to have any of that. They were out of school even longer. A lot of the day programs that they would normally go to, those were all closed. And so they've been super isolated, and that includes their families as well. Their families also, because of their child, their families, their parents, their siblings also have been more isolated these past years. And that's just something that I am constantly thinking about. And so thinking about this Night to Shine this year, even though it's going to be a drive-through again, it's just on my heart of like, how can we really show them that we are thinking about them, that we do love them, that God loves them, and we want to show that to them, that they aren't alone, even during isolation. They aren't alone. There are people that are standing behind them, thinking of them.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I think I just shared this with you this morning, but over the last 2 years now, I made a friend in the parking lot. His name is Greg, and it was during the first year of COVID is when I first met him, because he was off of work from the office and just working from home, and started walking his dog through the Creekside parking lot probably 3 or 4 times a day. And we just became friends. I thought, wow, this is just a fun relationship with someone in the community I could talk to on a regular basis, because he's actually showing up here. And then I went to my daughter's 8th grade graduation later that year and ran into Greg there, and he looked at me and he goes, "What, are you just following me now?" And I said, "No, I'm here for my daughter." And he's like, "Yeah, my daughter's graduating too." And then I met his daughter, and he introduced me to her, and she was part of the special needs program at Stone Valley Middle School. And so now, again, she's now over at the San Ramon High School. But he started telling me that there is a whole community of people that we have no idea of, and they are big, and they're right here. And so I started sharing about Night to Shine. The first thing he said was, "Let me know," and we spread the word like crazy. And people will want to be a part of this. So I was super encouraged by that, and glad that we're connected to be a part of what's going on with this. So what are the needs, and how can people get involved?
So definitely needs are volunteers. Even though this is a drive-through this year, again, we want to fill the red carpet. We want to fill the space with people cheering. Just so there's the red carpet stuff. There's also throughout the drive-through, there's like dance areas, there's karaoke areas, there's games areas. So there's lots of different areas to volunteer in at that actual Shine Through event. And you heard in the video that Night to Shine is on February 11th. So it's always the Friday before Valentine's Day. We are holding our drive-through on February 5th, and then the Tim Tebow Foundation holds their virtual event on February 11th. So when you heard the 11th, I wanted to clarify that. So drive-through is on February 5th. We also have like pre-event volunteer opportunities, which may be packing gift bags or making flowers for corsages and things like that. Additionally, we have a wish list on Amazon. So there's items on there that are either decorations for the shine-throughs or gifts for the gift bags. We also have gifts for the caregivers, because normally on a normal year, prom year, they would also have a caregiver event where they get dinner and entertainment. So since we can't do that, we are providing them with a gift for them as well at the drive-through. So on the Amazon wish list is things like that you can donate. And then the other thing would just be getting word out. So if anybody knows of somebody with special needs that they would like to invite to the event, or if you know someone that works within that community, just letting them know about the event. So we really want to reach all of these people that are out there we're covering basically Shasta County. So anybody out in that area, we'd really like to reach them and let them know about this.
That's great. And so the way that you can actually sign up is by going to creeksidechurch.com, and it's on our events page. There's a link there, take you right to the official website. You could register or point this out to folks who want to register as guests who would come to the event and enjoy the event. And there's also a link there where you can register to volunteer, and you see the Amazon wish list and all of those things that Sharissa was just sharing. Amethyst, did you?
Yeah, so the guests are ages 14 and up, so there's no top limit. I think we had one that was 71 one year, so no top limit, 14 is the youngest.
Awesome. And were you asking for, Amethyst, were you asking for volunteer ages? Okay, then that covers it.
Volunteers is 10 and up. Answer that one too.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Sharissa. Let's give Sharissa a hand. Thank you so much for being here and sharing. So let's see, who is up next? Oh, I had a really unique opportunity to sit over Zoom with two SRV USD social workers. So the San Ramon District social workers who are involved with our school families and students. Really kind of an eye-opening experience to hear what they had to say. This is the time of year where they get almost their one vacation break. So when the students are off from school, they are off from school. They would love to have been here. However, like I said, it is their one time to be away and get refreshed and recuperate. So they're doing that, but they were so willing to sit down over Zoom with me, and that's what we're gonna see right now.
My name is Michelle Dooner. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I work for San Ramon Valley Unified as a district social worker. And my specific job is I am a feeder pattern social worker. So feeder pattern meaning my specific one is the Cal High feeder pattern. I work with all of the schools that eventually feed into Cal High and Cal High as well. And when I say work with, about 80% of what I do is one-on-one mental health services with students. And then the other 20% is social service stuff with families, connecting them to resources, providing referrals, that type of thing.
Yes.
And my name is Dia Mundell, and I'm an LCA as well. And I do exactly what Michelle does, except at Monte Vista High School and the schools that feed into Monte Vista. And I also wear the title of Foster and Homeless Youth Liaison, but we all work with the homeless and the foster youth in our school district.
What's something that you wished more people in our community knew about these families that you work with and these students that you work with?
Well, I think most importantly is that they know that those students and those families exist. As we spoke before, Tim, the conception of the idea that San Ramon and Danville is a really wealthy area, and it is, but there are so many families who, don't fall into that category. So
there are a lot more low-income families and students in our district than I think people realize. And I just have a little story of a low-income student that I worked with a few years ago that was a middle schooler. And the Friday before Thanksgiving break, there was some sort of threat to the school. I don't remember what it was, but many students didn't come to school that day. But he did. And I saw him that day at school because it was my normal day to see him. And he was like, "This is the best school day of my life." I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "Because I don't have to sit here and listen to how everybody's going to fight over Thanksgiving break. Like, this is so great because I'm not listening to other people's vacations. I've never been anywhere." It was like, right.
Can you give us some, just a few practical ways that someone can positively help impact these under-resourced families and students?
Well, I have to say, I feel like churches in our area are our main supporters. And
Really?
reach out, yes, very much so. So, especially if there's a crisis situation where immediate childcare is needed, clothing. We take for granted here, kids to buy a pair of Air Jordans is no big deal, right? But when a kid has to dress poor, they really stand out in this area.
I have a student who everybody knows Crumble Cookie, the new cookie place in San Ramon. And if you don't know, you need to know because it's pretty good. But it's also like super expensive. And so I have a student who goes after school with her friends. They walk there and her friends all get a crumble, but she can't afford a crumble. So she never gets a crumble. And she just says, well, I just don't want one to her friends. And, maybe they'll give her a little bite here or there. But she doesn't get the crumble. And like, that's such a basic thing. And I don't think many people think about it. But to her, like, it's such a big deal that, like, I can't even get a cookie at the cookie store when my friends go to the cookie store, right? So it just even like small things,
Starbucks.
Right, exactly, like little gift cards for those sorts of things, for
Jamba Juice.
For students. Could go so far.
Car repairs are huge. They're so expensive. So if you have any community members that own a body shop or a mechanic shop, or even know how to do it, that's an awesome one. We usually need little bikes. It seems like elementary school, even some with training wheels, in good condition that you would let your own child ride, basically. But yeah, if there's bikes that kids have outgrown that are in great shape, we love to give those out, and helmets and bike locks. I think we just appreciate you guys listening and realizing that it is in your own backyard.
Thank you so much for taking the time to learn about the community's needs. We really appreciate it.
So if any of that resonates with you and you'd like to be one of those people, one of the things I'm remembering from our conversation, we had a big conversation. It took a lot of effort to whittle it down to that 4 minutes there. But one of the things highlighted was oftentimes the needs are immediate needs. And so it's not that they just have a list where we could constantly go back to. Oftentimes someone would call this week and communicate with them and say, hey, here's our need. Here's what we hope to have in the next day or so. And then people respond to those needs. So if you'd like to be considered one of those people to potentially be able to respond to one of those needs, then you could definitely let me know. You can find an email address through creeksidechurch.com, which would give you our info address, and you can leave a message there, or you can call the church office directly. Again, the number's on our website. You can talk to me anytime you want. Because I'm going to communicate back and forth with them in order to help fulfill and meet those regular needs that happen to pop up. And then as a church community, I'm looking forward to setting something up for us in general where perhaps it's something at the end of summer going into the school year where we get to provide brand new backpacks and new shoes and things like that so that students could enter the school year. Or maybe, like they had mentioned, it's something like gift cards, and you love to purchase gift cards and you want to supply gift cards that you could drop off here that I could give to them, that they could go, hey, here, student, you're able to go get crumble cookies with your friends or go to Starbucks with your friends or something like that. So just another opportunity that we have to be the kingdom of God in our own backyard. That is happening right here. Another highlight that I actually had to cut out for time's sake that they were talking about was that there is a huge homeless and foster community right here in Alamo, Danville, San Ramon area. And you just naturally would not guess it. But that is a huge need. And so if on a whole nother level, if you're thinking about foster care or something like that, then they'd love to be in contact with you that way as well. Yeah. So I'd like to invite up our last sharer this morning, Wendy Hagen. And Wendy is not a stranger to many people here. Wendy, you just so happen to come to us connected with Jeremy Mann.
Yeah, next door neighbor, Jeremy Mann.
Gotcha.
Shout out Jeremy, even though he's not here.
Gotcha. So, Wendy, you're involved with a lot of different things, but I have you here today sharing about Teen Esteem. So tell us a little bit what the organization Teen Esteem is and does and what they hope to accomplish.
Okay, well, I got involved with Teen Esteem about 4 years ago. I was asked to come observe a presentation. We speak to elementary students. We do classroom presentations for middle school and high school all around this valley. And so they were recruiting me to be a speaker because I do speaking in church settings and conferences and stuff. So I go and I sit and watch the presentation, and I walked out on staff pretty much because I was like, oh my gosh, I want every student to hear this. I want my kids to hear this. I can't believe we are in public schools. We're in private schools too, but we are in public schools as a non-Christian organization, giving kids hope and giving them principles of faith and encouraging them with messages they're not going to hear necessarily in the home. And so it started over 25 years ago and it's evolved, but we were just at San Ramon in Monte Vista. Where's Raquel, who was up here singing? Raquel was with me at San Ramon High School. We got Jared here as one of our speakers too.
Watch this, I think. Raise your hand if you've ever been involved with Teen Esteem.
There we go. Yes.
Look.
Yes,
so
I see. Amethyst was on staff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is awesome to be a part of an organization that is not affiliated with a church, but we are supported by church and supported fully by prayer and giving kids a message of hope and encouragement, especially during this time. So we talk about a lot of hot topics, but the overarching theme is that your story matters and you have value. And it's not based on your grades, and it's not based on your sport. It's not based on what you do, but it's on who you are. And then we also weave in a lot about starting over. You might make mistakes, but your life still matters. You can get back on track. Even if you've gone down the wrong path, you can reach your goals and dreams. And so all the while we're talking about vaping, pornography, marijuana, fentanyl, all these things, getting them thinking, how could these choices impact your life? And then we bring in our team of speakers, a lot of youth pastors and people to connect and relate to them and make them feel seen and known and loved.
Yeah. So if you've never heard the teapot analogy, or not teapot,
teacup.
The teacup.
Yeah.
I'm a little teapot, but anyway.
Same.
Yeah.
5'1".
The teacup analogy, you're missing out. Ask any of the people who raised their hand to give you the teacup analogy, because bottom line is you're all a teacup. And that's an important thing to know. Anyway, I won't have you give it right now, but can you share a couple impactful highlights that you've seen or heard come from Teen Esteem, like you mentioned, is really rooted in Christian principles?
Yeah, just a couple from the last couple months. I'm trying to think like, okay, I got to narrow down because we got some good ones lately. But let's see. Just before the break, we were at Doherty High School, and I always try and find students to connect with that are hard to connect with and ask the teachers, is there anyone I need to know about here? And sometimes they'll say, yeah, this person's going through this. Or so the teacher says, heads up, there's a kid in the next class who has, and she couldn't even really think of the diagnosis, but it was something like oppositional defiance disorder or something. I think it was ODD. And she said, but his tools are that he'll just read a book or he'll put his head down. So if you see him reading his book, just let him read his book or put his head down. And I'm like, well, do you think if I talk to him before class, I can try and warm him up or anything? She's like, no, just let him be. Don't try and engage him. That's just his thing. That's his coping thing. I'm like, okay. So about midway through, when the other speaker's up, I'm like, wait, where is that kid? I don't see him. And she goes, that's because he's totally paying attention and he's engaged. He's not. And at the end of the class, she got tears in her eyes. She said, Wendy, I have never seen that kid smile and laugh, and that he was engaged and he was smiling and he was laughing. And I was like, yes, Lord. I couldn't say that in front of her. I can't say yes, Lord. Can't say God. We're in public school. But, like the way that God, like what Steve was saying, like God shows up. Whatever you're doing as a believer, when you're seeking the Lord, he uses it all. One more story that is a God shows up story. So this time was at Cal High. This kid pounds on the door late, comes in, shuffles into class, goes and just sits in his chair, his hat's down, his mask up, like you could barely see his eyes, and his countenance was just down. And I'm like, there's my guy right there. Like, how do we reach this guy? So I go over to the teacher and I'm like, what is going on with him? And she says, yeah, he filled out a form, like a get to know you type form, and said, I have a broken family and all this real personal, deep, sad stuff. And so I'm like, all the more, okay, got to reach him. Come to find out he was a football player, but was injured. So he wasn't on the football team. Who knows what his family story is? He's hunched down. I try to engage him, not engaging. And then God uses something so stupid, okay? So this is how God shows up. So one of my side weird things is my girlfriends and I, so Hannah, my daughter used to cheer with Hannah, and us wives, we call ourselves cheer wives. It's just moms that travel together, and we made some jokes, and we started interviewing people at San Ramon on some football players on the sidelines, and then put it on Instagram, and it kind of went low-key viral just among students. And so people, when I'm walking through town, hey, you're a cheer wife. And it's just comedy, basically. Like we'll pull the players aside and be like, do you know the difference between a black bear and a brown bear, right? It's not Christian. It's just to bring people laughter, right? So at Cal High, back to the story. So guys like this, right? I'm in the middle of talking about mental health. We're talking about depression. We're talking about suicide. It's heavy. We're talking, and Mr. Low-Key guy here all of a sudden perks up and goes, wait a minute, are you a cheer wife? And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, not good timing on this. We'll talk about that later, but yeah, I am. Maybe we needed a little levity to break it up because, it gets real heavy in that section. And so that was it. Got him. God used stupid cheer wives to bring this guy to life. All of a sudden, he's asking questions. He's fully engaged, like eyes up, answering questions. And then it was access period the next period. So we just got to hang out in class. So I stayed after and got to engage with him and talk with him. And, we figure out how to make these connections with these kids that might lead them to another place. Like when we have youth pastors in there, Jared's going to be at Charlotte Wood by popular demand. My junior high girls were at my house. They're like, we have to have Jared. And it's in May. So I'm like, Jared, I don't care if you have a trip planned to Paris or something on that day. You're canceling. You got to be at Charlotte Wood. Because I guarantee you, when Jared goes to Charlotte Wood, all those girls are going to be like, that's my youth pastor. Oh, what? What is Elevate? What, and it turns into that. So God shows up. So sorry, I had to stand up, but I get a little excited about this stuff.
Awesome. Well, what?
Go. I don't know.
Just kidding. What are the current needs and how can people get involved?
So we, like these other organizations, have a big event. That's one of the things we raise funds for because we do not charge to be in the classroom. So these teachers get us all for free, which isn't free. And we have very low overhead. It just goes to meet our program. So helping with fundraising is one, or if you have lots of money you want to give us, that's always a good thing. Or if you know a guy that's in charge of the Google Foundation and has 5 million, I'm always looking for that because I don't like wasting time fundraising. But we have an event in the fall. So if people are good decorators and want to help with decorations or help with mailings, we need some help with marketing, creating flyers, PowerPoints. If someone likes researching, writing articles, we do parent education. So we do that in person on Facebook Live, and we send out mail outs about current events. So if you're someone that is really into latest trends and writing an article that we could send that could be educational to parents, I don't know, we'll figure it out. It's tricky because it's not like once a month, show up at 3 p.m. and make sandwiches or something. It's kind of all over the place. But if you have a heart and a passion and some time, we'll take you and do something with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you.
All right. I'll be here for a few minutes if you want to ask questions, and also info@teenesteem.org. And you can say, hey, I'll help you in some way.
Oh, there it is. Well, we got the
Esteem.
website up there,
Yeah.
but then Through the Teen
Just
Esteem website, you could get
Yep.
to info@teenesteem.org, or just remember it.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
Yep.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you.
Wow. That was fun, right? Yeah, it was a busy morning. We heard a lot, but as we close today, if you get a chance to rub shoulders with some of these folks that have shared this morning, please do. Ask them questions, brainstorm with them ways to highlight these ministries. But my encouragement to us as God's church is really to let the Holy Spirit stir something inside of us right now on ways that we can join with him this year to help impact things in the kingdom. Not to highlight Creekside, again, not to get butts in the seats, not that that's bad, but to really shine for him and to partner with what he is doing and where he is moving. Okay, would you stand with me? Father, this is our heart right now, that we would be your hands and feet in this specific place that you have dropped our church and set us down here. Would people know you because we are walking alongside of you? In your name, amen.